closing deals to opening minds. This is the Mr. D podcast. I'm Omar Andreasen, and we're about to get real about real estate, success, and the grit that it takes to build your best life. Let's dive on in.
Another episode of the Mr. D podcast show. Today, I'm excited to actually have Darrell Andrews on here with us, also known as Coach D. Now, Darrell, let me tell you a little bit about Darrell Andrews, okay? Or for now, I'm just going to call you Coach D. That's it.
That sounds good.
That a lot better. He's actually the founder and president of Darrell Andrews LLC and Associates. They're nationally recognized for consulting and training. They're a training firm in Winter Park, Florida, with over 20 years of experience. He's actually transformed organizations in education, government, and the corporate sectors with his signature message: passion, purpose, and power. I love that. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And that's just been launching their firm. And he's actually been a top performing sales and marketing agent as well at Abbott Laboratories. Today, Coach D is sought after. He's actually a sought after speaker, author, advisor, and he also loves the Eagles and the Phillies.
That's the most important part.
Coach D, thank you so much for joining us on the show, man. Listen, pretty much what I'm going to do is I'll ask you some questions as we're going along, but we're just going to sit here, listen. We're going to absorb everything that you have for us to really make our lives better and to help us improve as real estate agents, entrepreneurs, and people.
Yes, sir. Listen, man, it's truly an honor to be here, first of all. And like I said, when I saw that Philly hat on your head, that just lit me up because I am Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Team Eagles, Team Phillies all the way, man. I've been fans of those teams. I think it's about 30 years now, 30 plus years. So good to see that. But no, it's an honor to be here, man. I always tell people I count my life a blessing. Anyone that can wake up in the morning and go out here and impact lives in any capacity, I think that's a blessed way of living, man. It's fantastic, be it a corporation, be it an organization, be it an individual. Man, it's truly fantastic that I get a chance to do this and have been for 2 decades. So thanks for having me on, and hopefully we can share some words of wisdom that can help individuals who are listening, or organizations that are listening, or corporate leaders that are listening. Maybe we can share some insights that can improve those things that they aspire to achieve.
Love it. Love it. Let's go ahead and kick it off. When it comes to mindset, all right, what's the biggest mindset shift that leaders really need to make?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is. And I'll put it to you this way. I was doing a consulting project for the state of Pennsylvania, very high level consulting project. And we're talking about, ironically, change and innovation and all that stuff. And one of the senior leaders walked in and had a kind of personal conversation with me. He said, Coach, I'm dealing with something that's a bit of a struggle. My boss is really aggressive. She seems to find a lot of negative things to say, and I guess she sees that as a way of motivating me. I don't know. And he said, but before the pandemic, I could handle that. He said, after the pandemic, I can't. I don't have the bandwidth. And so she's still trying to lead me like it was 5 years ago, and she doesn't realize that we're just not there anymore. And when you ask what are one of the primary skills that leaders need to understand, is they have to understand that we're not leading a pre-pandemic population anymore. We're leading a post-pandemic population who has been through a lot, who have been through trauma, maybe some losing family. The depression rates in our country have hit an all-time high. Trauma is through the roof. Everyone's talking about trauma-informed care. So I'm going to give you a statement and we'll build from there. How's that sound? Is that okay?
Love it. Let's do it.
Just a kind of a perspective of leadership. So when I used to talk about leadership prior to the pandemic, I would say that leadership is the ability to guide, govern, and influence. And that's a powerful statement within itself when you think about it. Leadership post-pandemic, this one's where people have to upskill, is the ability to listen, understand, and engage. That's a different skill set. And so if you're going to lead now, that's a skill set you need to master, man, because I'll say this, the great leaders that we'll be talking about 10, 15 years from now are the leaders who master that skill today. Just like we're talking about great leaders from the past based upon what they had, that's how great leaders will be defined. So that would be the one thing I would say, mindset-wise, man, you cannot lead people today like it was 6 years ago, or you will lose them. You'll have a serious retention issue.
That's you hit the nail on the head because nowadays it's just, and you're completely right. Coming from, I remember when doing real estate 4 or 5 years ago, totally different now. How the mindset is not there, and I think it's one of those where, as human beings, we've because of technology and everything, technology really, we can get everything in an instant. And then that transforms over now to our lives because everything we want is instant success, instant. And just it goes down the road where it doesn't happen that way. And especially when people first got in, when they got in real estate, like what, 4 or 5 years ago during the pandemic, think for selling out hotcakes. I'm like, oh, this is an easy job. I just made 100, 200,000, whatever. And now, so many people have dropped off because it's not easy anymore because they don't have the skills. They don't have the sales skills, they don't have the people skills, they don't have the life skills. And so I think that's a great point that you just made when it comes to pre-pandemic and then after the pandemic is you're dealing now with two completely different cultures, two completely different people, and you hit it spot on. You really need the one who masters that to gold.
No, man, that's the goal. And to the defense of a lot of us out here, like when you're talking about the impact of social media and the impact of this shortened, I want it now type mindset, a lot of people over time has just been slightly programmed over to that way of living or thinking. So that's why I always tell people the number one thing we need to think about, I shouldn't say number one of the top things we need to think about is how are we controlling what is influencing the way we think? I need to be in control of that. I need to have an awareness of, okay, this is having this kind of impact on me, man. And how much of that am I going to allow? For instance, for me, I love this. What we're doing right now, this is my neck of the woods, man. I love empowering. I love using technology with this, but you're not going to see me scrolling on Instagram an hour or 2 hours. I don't have time for that because I don't need to hear all of those different, I don't need all of that. I'm going to focus in on building my career, focus on building relationships, using technology as needed, but I'm controlling that. It's not controlling me. But that takes work. And I'm not trying to make anyone out there feel guilty, but that takes work because the most powerful tool we have is in between these two ears. And if we don't work on enhancing or strengthening or getting some sense of control over what's impacting that, then we are now controlled by the environment and society instead of us telling us this whole thing what we want to accomplish. So mindset is huge, man. We can literally do a whole show on mindset because I've studied it quite a bit. And my hope is that people understand you're right. We need to go from what Dr. Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
Yeah, no, and I love how you said that we have these here for a purpose, and like I have a couple friends, and one in particular that it's they don't listen, and I think one of the most annoying things that I cannot stand is when if you ask me a question and then I'm trying to answer it, but then you start cutting me off before I'm like, oh, somehow listen first. Instead of trying to finish my sentences for me, listen first because you asked a question, or it's just one of those things where and one thing I've learned is after someone's done talking, pause for 3 to 5 seconds, right? To make sure that person's done with their thought because I want to, it's out of respect. I asked you a question, so let me pause to make sure that you're giving me the information and the knowledge that I asked you about.
Yeah, that's a byproduct of the times as well. Because again, people just, I don't know if people are really good active listeners anymore. People are just, and I think it's also a connection to how a person feels internally. There's a little bit of anxiety there. You probably have heard these terms before, but one again, there's certain things when I look at the pillars, I call them like pillars that folks need to have. One today is this thing called emotional intelligence. And you probably have heard of that. Dr. Daniel Goleman is the one who created that. But his perspective is that an emotional quotient is more important than IQ. And I think a lot of times people may even have high IQs, but they have terrible EQs. The ability to connect with people, the ability to engage folks, but just like Q, you had to study, you had to read, and you had to go to class. EQ needs to be worked on as well. My emotions, how am I responding to situations? How am I engaging people? As a leader, do I have a sense of self-awareness And self-awareness is simply understanding my moods and impulses and their impact on other people. And that's hard because people can see it from another person's perspective, but they can't see their own thing like that needs to be worked on. So great leaders today and great people today are very much aware of the things they need to work on to make them a better human, a better person, a better business person, a better career across the board. And emotional, I just use this one particular, but emotional intelligence is huge because if not, all I'm waiting for you is to finish your statement so I can chime in as quickly as I can instead of absorbing what you're saying and giving you the better response based upon what you're talking about. So I just want to add that little piece, man. That's a really important skill as well. Emotional intelligence.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you brought that up because especially when I'm in the sales, you know what? I'm not in the sales industry. I'm in the people business. Okay.
Yep.
And it's funny because right when I got into real estate, we learned about scripts and whatnot. I want to do scripts. Why do I want to do scripts? I'm like, and then the coach at the time said, "Wait a minute, literally watch scripts every single day. It's called TV. And the reason why you want to do scripts is because then it's educating you on what to say, what not to say, and how to help that client at the end of the day." The reason I bring this up because you said something there, and whenever, let's say you know your scripts really well, but then all of a sudden you ask a question, and instead of you listening, all you're doing is you already know in your head what's the next script you're going to ask, what question, and so you didn't even listen. And nowadays, I'm sure your phone probably gets blown up with telemarketers. I know mine does all the time, and
Yeah.
and I use it to sharpen my skills with them. And I'll ask them, yeah, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, and ask me questions going back and forth, and then I'll tell them like, I actually already answered that. I said, so if you stop just paying attention to your script and listening to what I'm saying, I said you would be much better at what you're doing right
Much better. Yes, I'll tell you. Oh, you mentioned I was with Abbott Laboratories. Abbott was at the time, I don't know if it is the largest medical diagnostic company in the world. And they were one of the largest pharmaceutical companies. I worked on the diagnostic side and I was in sales and marketing. And one thing I immediately recognized, I'll put it to you this way, man. I probably wasn't one of the more intelligent people on the team when it came to degrees. Like some folks had doctoral degrees, some people had high-level master's degree. I jokingly tell people I had a bachelor's degree and I fought every inch I got to get that thing, man. It was I worked hard to get that bachelor's degree. But one thing I had was the ability to build rapport. And even though I couldn't, and sometimes even communicate at the higher levels with some of those doctors and laboratories, I would go in there and build relationships with the knowledge I had. And I ended up in one of the top 2% of sales reps in the United States
now.
because I was building relationships.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. One of my regional managers did a field travel with me, and we went to several different accounts. And you're always nervous because you don't know what they're thinking or anything because they're taking notes and all that. What's this person thinking? And at the end of the travel, we said, in all my years, he said, I've been at this company 23 years. I've never seen someone have such great rapport with their customers. And I said, yeah, because to me, why would I want to buy from somebody I don't like? I don't even like you. I'm gonna buy from you, please. And so that people have realized that it takes a little time to build that, but there's strength in it. But that's not just in sales, that's in anything, any relationship building across the board. So I was just thinking about that when you were just talking about the sales part, because I was a little off script most of the time. I did scripts, but because I understand the importance of going through the sales cycle, that's researched and they know that works. But then there's time I put that thing down and I'm talking to them about the family, the kids, the last vacation they were on.
Everybody.
So anyway, yeah, I hear you on that one, man.
No,
Yeah.
I love that. Love that. So sorry, I'm a klutz. I sit there and I spilled my freaking water. Right, there's water everywhere. Anyway,
Hey, mine is
somebody
way
doesn't
over
mind
here.
sharing.
Mine's way over there, man. I keep
So,
that.
all right. Another question I have, and since we're building on this and we've
Yeah.
gone a little bit, but let's expand. So, why do you think leaders should actually? Why do you think they should prioritize their well-being, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to leaders?
Yeah. I think it goes back to some of the things we've already discussed. You know what I mean? Like we've said that people have changed post-pandemic. People are just not the same. The world around us has shifted. So I think that leaders, because of that, it goes back to what we just said about emotional intelligence, need to be more emotionally attuned. And so that within itself takes a stable mindset, man. That takes a person that's willing to breathe a little bit before they respond. One of my consultants, I love a statement that he led, and you're going to probably love this one too, but he says this: my response is my responsibility. I love that. I love that one because he's right. So leaders need to understand that well-being and self-care is really a precursor to wellness. And wellness gives you the energy and the synergy to be able to handle situations as they occur more effectively if you're not taking care of yourself. If you don't have the energy, if you're dealing with internal things, if you're frustrated, if you're full of angst, then you go into the workplace and you're carrying that in there. How in the world could you be effective? But if you're taking care of yourself, I tell people taking their vacations when their vacations come up, working on health and well-being, man. Listen, I have 6 trips around the sun. Most people don't believe it. They look at me, are you crazy? You haven't been on around. I said, but I'm in that gym every day at 5:30. I'm getting it in, man. I do my runs. I watch my diet. I do veggies. And every now and then I'll put a steak up in there. But the point being, I look at this thing I have is really is like a vessel, man. It's like you got to take care of this. This more to me more important than a Rolls Royce. If I had a Rolls, I'm gonna shine that thing up, put the best oil in it. I'm gonna take care of that puppy, and then I'm not gonna take care of this valuable thing here. No, for leaders, I would say this, Omar, if you don't mind, man. I almost think it's an imperative. I don't think you can even effectively lead today if well-being and self-care is not a part of your. You'll lead from something, but it won't be from a healthy position. So that's a big part of it. We have this book we wrote on the self-care movement, and we're trying to say folks all over the country, man, listen, jump into this right now because the world we live in today, I don't know how you can function without it. So that's a whole seminar within itself, but in a nutshell, it is critical. And I'll say this, so many organizations here in Central Florida and even beyond have these wellness initiatives where they're trying to get not just their leaders, but their employees, because people understand that healthy workplaces produce healthy outcomes. But what I tell people is this, wellness is a byproduct. It's the end result of self-care. So we got to have conversations around self-care before we can even can discuss wellness or well-being. And that's a process and that's a learning thing. And leaders need to learn that. And there's a lot of resources out there that can help with that.
No, I love that, especially when you talk about leaders and self-care. And to me, so it's one of those, if you want to be a leader, it's so hard to be a leader because at the same time, you have to be disciplined.
Yeah,
And being humans, we're not necessarily always disciplined, right?
you're not.
But you have to make sure if you're a parent, if you're a
Mhm.
leader, if you're someone that is out there where everyone knows you, it's like they're always looking at you. So you always have to make sure that if you want to be that quote unquote leader, unfortunately, you have to take the right steps at every single moment.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started playing sports, and I have a couple of my friends who are professionals, and like, I don't want to be a role model. I'm like, I get you don't want to be a role model, but you know what? It's just like everything else. If you don't want to be a parent, then you don't have a kid. But if you have a kid, guess what? Maybe you didn't want to be a parent, but you're a parent now. If you're a professional athlete or whatever you may be, like if you're looked up to, you're a role model. And whether you like it or not, it comes with a job.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, you have to be that person, you have to be that leader, and you have to be disciplined because there's always going to be eyes on you no matter what.
Yes, sir. And that's said, man. And I'll tell you this, it's an honor to be in this position. I love folks. I get a lot of calls for advice. I get a lot of calls for a mentor. I try to be careful, don't overdo it with mentoring because you can have a million mentees and everybody wants you to mentor them. But I mentor, and I take great pride in that, man. I have 4 beautiful children. My daughter's getting married in September, and I'm mentoring her soon to be husband. Great guy. But no, man, these are, it's a privilege, it's an honor. And like you're saying, I take it all seriously, man. I got to stand on stages sometimes with 50 people or 10,000. It just doesn't matter. And when I stand up there, one thing that's important to me is to be an example of what I'm talking about. I don't want to just stand there and talk about self-discipline and I have none, or stand there and talk about focus and I'm not even focused, or stand there and talk about goals. And when was the last time I looked at a goal? And so now as a leader, I feel I'm not doing imposter syndrome stuff. I feel really good that I can share this with these folks and they can see it's evident in my life that he's an example of what he's talking about. But I'll say this real quick, man. This is the power of it. The power of it is not necessarily the fact that you're standing there as this person in position of leadership, but all the other leaders you're developing because of your example. that they're watching you, man, and they can attribute their life success to sometimes not even you say anything, but just watching you. That's a powerful position to be in. It really is.
It is. And I mean, to me, I think some of the most powerful leaders, whether you like it or not, are they call you mommy and daddy. So it's one of those where it starts there. You probably didn't want to be that leader per se, but guess what? They're going to look up to you, and everything that you do, they're going to mimic. So be careful on those.
Yeah. I got 4 of them. I got 4 beautiful babies. I get it. I got 4 of them, man. 4 beautiful kids.
I got 2 girls, so I mean that the house is dominated by women. So
I got 2 girls and 2 boys.
Oh, there you go. You at least have okay. All right, you got stuff. So that's
I'm one away from a team. Give me 4. I got a team, right?
Love it. Listen, let's say somebody reaches out to you and they're like, "Hey, Coach D, we need you to come in because there's something wrong within our team, our sales, or whatever it is." How do you go in there? How do you diagnose the dysfunction within that team?
Yeah. Obviously, today there's so many quote unquote surveys you can do to be able to gather data from the different people. But for me and our team, one thing we love is old fashioned, Omar, just focus groups, man. Get different focus groups of different core members of the team and sit down and just have a heart to heart conversation. One thing I share with every leader that brings us in, are you willing to be honest? Are you open to honesty? Because some folks just want to be placated, man. They just want you to pat them on the back, or they want to say that the team is the problem. And sometimes it's not the team. Sometimes it can be the person that's writing that check. And that's hard because now you got to go to them and say, "Hey, your team is fantastic, but you got some issues." I've watched this for a few days. So we do focus groups. We're smart enough to know that some people are going to complain no matter what you do. So we don't, every time somebody says something negative in a focus group, it could just be, that's just, you probably go to that person's home, they're saying stuff negative there. But when you see a consistency as far as what people are saying, then there's something there. If there's a, "Hey, you know what, we walk on eggshells," then, and you hear that over and over again, then guess what? Chances are that's a culture where you're walking on eggshells. Or if it's not open door, then you hear that enough and you start realizing not open door. Or sometimes it's expectations aren't clearly defined. I don't know what success is. And I don't know, am I doing a good job or bad job until I get into my performance evaluation. Nobody's giving me anything up to that point. So it's just going in and sitting and talking with folks, focus groups. I like to sit with the leaders, the manager, and staff, or if it's a team, sales team, whatever. Not just the leaders, because they're going to have one perspective, or not just the managers, they'll have another, and not just the staff. I like to hear from all of them. And once we gather that data, man, then we go back and just make suggestions and recommendations. But we always tell folks, are you willing to do the work? Because a lot of times you bring people like us in, man, it just feels good. I'm not the feel good kind of guy. I'm an old football player and I'm an old linebacker, man. When I hit, I'm trying to take the quarterback out, man. So, you don't work with me. We got to get this done because I don't want you at the end of this saying it didn't work. Well, the reality is this: the principle works, need to work everywhere else. If you don't work them, they can't help you. So we try to give them strategies and say, and then commit to several months of coaching to help them coach them through the process.
Through that, you said something that just it engaged with me because I remember when I hired my first admin, I'm sitting there with my coach and I'm talking to him and I'm like, "Man, this admin is just freaking horrible. I don't know what it is." And I'm going back and forth and he goes, "I think I'm just going to get rid of her." He said, "Stop." He said, "I can tell you right now." He said, "It's not the admin, it's you." He said, "Omar, about 95% of the time, it's because how did you train that admin? How are you communicating with that admin?" He goes, "Understand that everyone always wants to point fingers. Somebody else. It's always somebody else's issue, somebody else's problem. But understand that how did you relay that information? How did you communicate? How did you train them?"
That's it. That's
know?
it, man. And every member of your team, because what I always share with my team, and it was different now than years. In some years, we had a bunch of contract work with agencies and organizations. I had more employees. I don't have that much now, but during that time, I let every person on my team know you're the most important person on this team. Not me. You are. And ironically, one of the people was my administrative assistant, Judy. And I said to Judy, "You're the most important person on this team." She said, "Coach, I've heard you say that to other people on the team. I just can't accept it." I said, "Oh, yes, you are." I said, because you're the first person that picks up that phone. You're the first person that people see when they walk in the door. You set the tone for the rest of this. She said, "Go." She said, "Okay, coach, I guess that is important." I said, "Yeah, it is." So,
100%. Yeah, she's the person. Yeah, because she's having a bad day. She answers the phone with an attitude. Then that you
that reflects on
lost
you.
the client. Yeah.
You
So
lose
no,
a deal on that one, man.
that
Yeah,
that makes 100% sense. No, and you're right.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So here's a question: with everything that we've been talking about, how things have changed and whatnot, this, what do you think's changed in leadership expectations?
What could you repeat that question again?
What's changed in leadership expectations, in your opinion, as you've been working with clients and
Yeah.
what you saw maybe
Oh,
10 or 15 years ago to now?
yeah. Once again, that's an interesting question because it depends on who you're working with and what they're focusing in on. Like some leaders, their expectations, obviously their bar is still high, which it should be. I don't think that the time should dictate a low bar. People still gotta produce. That's just the way it is. If you're in sales, if you're in marketing, if you're operations, whatever it may be. But one thing I noticed that's interesting, and I'm just bringing this up, man, to show again the times. One of my friends ran an organization called the Center for Work Ethic, and he said that leaders have such a hard time today finding people who are committed to things like time management that they'll compromise a little bit on the front end so that they can keep good people. So like they'll say you need to be work at 8, but they're okay if they get there at 8:30. So to me, that's like a character flaw on the employee. And to me, that lowers the bar. If I'm saying 8, you need to be at work at 8. So I think again, it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning of this, man, how people themselves have changed a little bit. But so the leaders sometimes sadly have to make the expectation of, well, I can't expect this person to be on time, even though they're extremely talented. And I would say to that leader, you know what? I'll take a little bit less talent that I can build up to great talent than someone that has talent is not willing to do something as simple as show up on time.
No, I love that because
Yeah, man, because I can train a person and coach a person and model what I want for that person. But that person that lacks character can impact the entire organization because other people are watching and say, hey, how is he or she able to get away with that?
yeah.
And so leaders has that's one thing. But I would say overall, the leaders I've had a chance to interact with, they communicate more, they have more open door policies. They're like companies overall are trying to work with people as far as the hybrid, because so many people went from the workplace back to home, home, the workplace. So I'm finding leaders are really trying to do their best, man, to make this thing work as a whole. But that one I just mentioned, that one's probably the most challenging for me because I just don't think that you just can't lower the bar like that. People still have to produce because how do I become better if I can just get away with everything? You know what I mean? I don't become a better employee, nor do I become a better person. And one thing we talk to leaders about a lot, Omar, man, is this thing called anchor values. So I'm finding that leaders are now starting to understand the importance of not the organizational core values alone, but their own anchor values. What are 2 or 3 values that I possess that I filter everything through? My way I communicate, the way I work. And so when we train and when we coach, we are coaching them to their anchor values. Because I say, hey, you know what? In any scenario, good, bad, indifferent, combative or not, you're going to be a leader. Period. You're not going to let anybody knock you off your rocker. You're going to exhibit leadership. You can fire somebody with a smile on your face. You
Okay.
won't be upset about that. And because if you give that person every chance that you get, and then they come in, listen, you can keep your leadership persona strong and position strong because guess what? There's a lot of other people that depend on that leadership. So that's just some thoughts, man.
You said something here when you were talking about hybrid, right? And yeah, pretty much everything's hybrid nowadays. So in saying that, how do you keep a team engaged in a
Yeah.
hybrid world?
I don't know. I might have to ask you that question. No. Have you answered that one? But no, you know what, man? Again, there's so many different things that you can share with leaders about that. But let me tell you one technique that we've used, and this is so simplistic, man. We ask leaders to do what we call virtual cups of coffee. Okay. And a virtual cup of coffee is, let's say we're trying to get to know, like we're getting to know each other, like we're doing now. We get to know each other, man. Now this is an interview, but if we if we were sitting down and have a cup of coffee, there'd be our conversation would probably be different. Talking about the kids, talking about the dog, cat, vacations, and things like that. I tell leaders, talk to your people about those things. Don't just go and talk about work all the time. Have a virtual cup of coffee. So tell me about yourself. This just happened the other day. This is incredible, man. We did this training in South Carolina, right? And we had them do it right there. We said, let's practice. Okay. And so we had them break off into teams and twos, and they were all having virtual cups of coffee right there in the room. And one of the ladies came back and said, I've been working with her for 15 years and I didn't know XYZ about him. I said, because you never talked about it. Everything was about the work assignment, getting the job done. You may have laughed about some things and had some fun, but you really didn't know the person. And so I thought that was just so amazing to me to work with somebody that many years and not even know that about them. And I told leaders, man, you really want to connect with your employees? Let them know you care about the little things in their lives. Man, that child that's just won the soccer championship for, just did something fantastic, or the wife that just got her college degree, or husband that just got this and that changes the landscape of how people see you. When you go from that person that they see as just this person in this work assignment to a human being that cares.
I love that, man. That's powerful. And you know what? You hit the nail on the head because of this whole virtual world now that we're in, some people it's almost like we're too lazy to learn about other people, right? On top of that, us being humans, it's always about me, me, me. And I love how you said, you know what, let's just open up a sales meeting and say, hey, listen, tell us something that no one knows about you. And I think, and that's awesome. I love that. And I remember I was in a sales meeting a few years back, and I remember that's exactly what the speaker said. He goes, introduce yourself, and then tell us something that nobody else would know this room about.
Yeah. It's really cool, man. I tell you one exercise I like to do. You may have heard this one. It's called two lies and a truth. And so we break them up and we say, okay, y'all four work together and you're going to tell each other two lies and one truth about yourself. And just to hear some of the things that they say and make up is hilarious, man, because they make up some of the crazy. Yeah, I climbed the Mount Kilimanjaro with one shoe on. So it's pretty cool, man. And then you just see them laughing and smiling and things like that. And so it just breaks up the ice. But again, like you said, you get to know something about the person.
I love that. That's freaking awesome. All right. One final question. Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
I ask everybody this before we get off. Now, if you can leave just one deed behind, one action, mindset, or even a lesson for every real estate agent, professional, or entrepreneur that's listening to today, what would that be?
Let me say this to you, because I'm going to say this for the times. Okay. This is just for the times we live in today. I'm going to give them an old Les Brown quote. I don't know if you ever heard of Les Brown, motivational speaker. Been around forever, right? Les just turned 80. I can't believe he's 80 years old. I said, doggone, boy, you've been around a long time, right? Les has this quote that he shares, and we all can benefit from this quote today. He said, if you fall down on your back, if you look up, that means you can get up. No matter how difficult it gets, if you fall on your back and it looks like the world is crumbling around you, guess what? If you look up, that means you can get up. I just tell people to get up, man. Keep fighting. Keep going for your dreams. Don't let situations dictate what your life outcome is going to be. People are looking today and saying, this is happening and that's happening and that's. I said, I've been on the planet long enough. I've seen all kinds of this happening and that happening. That doesn't even exist anymore. And I'm still here. What happened 10, 15 years ago, the world was falling apart back then. I'm still here. Something happened 4 years ago. Guess what? Still here. This is going to pass. Your dream and your vision is going to keep you on course. You're going to always have hiccups. You're going to always have challenges. I'm an entrepreneur. You're going to have some times where you feel like you're on top of the mountain, and sometimes you're going to feel like you're way in the valley. But guess what? Yeah, get up and get busy. So that's what I would say to folks. Don't allow circumstances to dictate the dreams that you have. Let your vision, let your drive, let your ambition to achieve what you have inside of you, make it happen. Now, I'll say this before we go. My wife is in the real estate, man. She's in the real estate. She's an investor. She's doing some things. And you know what? I see her, man. And she's new. She's brand new. And man, she wakes up with that. She gets up and get it done. She goes to the meetings. She's a member of the Central Florida Real Estate. She just gets up and goes and gets it done. And guess what? In less than a year and a half, she's seeing some success. You know what, man? The circumstances don't determine your dreams. You do. Get up and get busy.
No, that Coach D, yeah, I mean, that's it. And I love that saying, fall on your back, get up. You can see the world, get up. And that's powerful stuff, man. Listen, I wanted to thank you so much. I'll make sure that we're going to follow you on social and definitely stay in touch with you. Thank you. And we'd love to have you back on the show again, because there's so much more that we can dive into.
Yeah.
And it's only an hour show, but it's something that you were powerful today, powerful. And I love it.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I hope the listeners do as well. Guys, listen, remember, actions build empires. Stay focused, stay hungry, and get the goddamn win. I'm Omar Andreasen. Thank you so much for tuning in into Mr. Deeds. Have a blessed day, everybody.
This is Omar Andreasen signing off and reminding you that success in real estate and in life is built one deed at a time. Until next time, keep it real, stay sharp, and don't forget to give life a big whammo and keep moving forward.